Namaskar and welcome to this new exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology with my very dear friend and a very knowledgeable person. Today we're talking something very unique. All of us we ask this question: where is Lanka? What is Lanka? And what was actually Ravan's Lanka? And some of you may know the history that Ravan and Mandodari are from the national capital region of India, Meerut and Ghaziabad. And this is what is told to us. And how did he reach Lanka, which was far south in the corner drop of India? And what was actually Lanka's original name? A lot more with Sri Nilesh Ok. Let us welcome Sri Nilesh Okji. Namaskar.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Namaskar. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, and I learn a lot. And it's also a pleasure for the students also. They're seeing something in a new light. I think the Saraswati, actually the other name of Saraswati was Bhogavati in Mahabharata.
Saraswati had many tributaries,
Yeah.
and also many distributaries. So many names like Ogavati, Ogavati is also Saraswati, so many different streams.
So today's topic is, where is Ravan's Lanka?
Right.
So that's where we are discussing, and I think many viewers are very much interested, those of you who know Ramayana. And I'll just very briefly explain that when we talk about two Kshatriya or the kings that we speak about, Krishna was not a king, but he's a prince. But two great Kshatriya leaders. Kshatriya means one who protects us from hurt, and are Ram and Krishna. So those very two famous personalities from the Vedic culture. So when we talk about Ram, it's a deep love for Ram even today, and it's just going on and on. Whether it's the South Americans or North Americans or Europeans, or it is Asians, and many Muslims also love Ram. So let's move on with that. Where is Ravan's Lanka? And I'll give you the opening shots for that. Thank you.
Okay. So you mentioned original ancestral place of Ravana to be Ghaziabad and that area. So that's the new information for me. So that's a great information. So from the paternal side, Ravana comes into he's a descendant of the sage Paulastya, and correct me if I'm saying the wrong name, but I think he's a Paulastya Vansha. Okay, and from the mother side, he's coming from other connection. And if you look at Mandodari, I think you mentioned Mandodari also. So Mandodari's father is Mayasur, one of the many Mayasur. So immediately we think of one Mayasur and people sometimes get confused. Is it the same Mayasur that you see in Mahabharata? Is it the same Mayasur who is attributed, the writing of the composition or updating of Surya Siddhanta? But there were many Mayasur. He is definitely one of them. And his wife's name was Hema, and their daughter is Mandodari. And their region, at least for Mayasur and Hema, the region appears to be, we don't know for sure, because we are talking this history that goes back more than 14,000 years. So what happens with the time, we certainly lose evidence. Many other stories emerge, they get mixed. Many other Mayasur come into the picture, many other Hema, not just Mayasur, and it becomes so confusing. But so we are talking something more than 14,000 years ago. Mayasur and Hema, their daughter Mandodari, who marries Ravana. Now, in terms of Ravana going to Lanka, Ravana's step brother, Vaishravana Kuber. And, Kuber is known as a rich person. Like, we should pray to Kuber for wealth. That's how it is in the tradition. Yeah. Why is that? Because Kuber is, or Kuber tradition, you can say, and then Varuna, the Kuber Varuna also connection is very close. And that has to do with the navigation, with the seafaring. And that means commerce. And that's how the wealth was accomplished. And I will not go into that story. Maybe you can, Aditya, tell the story. But see what happened. So at some point, Ravana insisted, I want that Lanka, the control of Lanka, which was under Kuber. and their father convinces Kuber, says, okay, please, he will not listen, this guy will not listen, you go away, let him enjoy Lanka. That's how we ended up in the south with Lanka. So that's kind of the background before we get into where is Ravana's Lanka, and is Sri Lanka is Ravana's Lanka. If it is, why? If it is not, why it is not, and what evidence tells us. So we will get into that.
See, the Valmiki Ramayana is one of the best historical books you can ever read in terms of characterization of Bhagwan Ram.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the entire Ramayana was written to glorify the character of Ram, as Valmiki tells Narada. He asks him, Narad Muni, that who is the best person that the whole humanity can follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the Ramayana begins, with the characterization of Ram. And it is so badly described in front of most of the people.
Mm.
Ram was a warrior. Most of the times you used to move around with gloves,
Mm.
and always ready for a warfare, and spoke less, and he was naturally good looking, and did a lot of yayayam, which is
Mm.
exercise.
Mm.
And most of the images that are made for Bhagwan Ram show him almost like a very feminine character, and
Yeah,
which
our mistake.
is our mistake, because he
Yeah.
was a very chivalrous. I mean, it is described that when he used to work on the Dhanush Band, his hand was not seen. He was so fast,
Mm.
and he was an expert in organizing huge armies.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he arranged a huge Vanar Sena, and
Correct.
like he defeated the pride of Ravan with monkeys.
Yes.
Ravan was the same position in the United States, or
Yeah.
some crazy ruler like that.
Yeah.
And he defeated Vanar Sena. That was Bhagwan Ram, fast decision maker. For enemies, he was a terrible fighter, a best son, one of the
Mm.
best husbands.
Yeah.
And the characterization is so wrong. When I used to watch the Arun Govil's Ramayana,
Mm.
they have done a fantastic job, but I used to fall
Yes.
asleep.
Yes.
And by looking at that serial, nobody will get ever faith in Bhagwan Ram.
Mm-hmm.
It's so slow decision making. Today's we are living in Twitter world, which is 128 characters. Or so where is Ram's Lanka? What is actually Sri Lanka then?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk quickly. So just to add to what you said, absolutely, you described the purpose of Ramayana very well. I call it the oldest biography available to humankind, to humanity.
Correct.
Okay, that gives you not a biased account. It gives a very balanced account.
Balanced account. That's right.
When you see Valmiki talk about Rama, he's talking of Rama's virtues. He's talking Rama's emotional aspects. Sometimes he feels very down, like when
Exactly.
he has lost Sita.
Ardha Manusya, Ardha Narayan. Exactly.
Yes,
The
right.
human emotions are there,
Yes,
which you don't
and
find in Krishna, because Krishna is not a human at all.
correct, correct. And when it comes to Ravana, Valmiki also is very objective in describing the glorious aspects of Ravana.
Yeah.
So it's a very balanced. And then Valmiki is also objective in describing some of the very vicious aspect of Ravana too.
Correct.
So very, very balanced
Very
book,
balanced.
very balanced biography. Also, the description that you just mentioned, when Valmiki is thinking, who should I write about? And then I think Narada Muni comes, and then Brahma comes, right? And they say, well, you don't have to think much. The current contemporary character is right in front of you. Why do you have to think? It's Rama. So one of the point is Valmiki is very contemporary to Rama, okay, and he's writing this whole Ramayana in his time,
In his
and of course sometime after Rama. So with that, let's go back to our main question, which is Lanka.
Actually, just to
Yeah, go ahead.
emphasize what you said, both Ramayana and Mahabharata are blessed by Brahma, because Brahma comes in front of Vyasadeva also when he is
True.
thinking about writing.
True.
Because Vyasadeva had already compiled in his mind,
Hmm.
but he was looking for a good scribe. So Brahma comes on his own, and
Yeah.
even for Valmiki Ramayana also, Brahma comes on his own without asking.
Yes, correct. And that's a great point again. And remember that connection there. See, for example, the things happen in space and things happen in time, but the things happen. So if you go again back to the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, so the role of a Shiva or a Rudra is that Mahakal or a Kal, the time. Vishnu, it comes from a Vruddhi, the V dhatu, which is a space, expansion or this. So that is that space. So now we got the basic ingredients, the time and space, and now something needs to happen. That is the Leela. And that's where the Brahma comes in picture, because that is the doing, the Kruti, that is coming from Brahma. So that's why in both cases, not a surprise. And you articulated it very well, that both cases the Brahma comes. Okay, so now let's talk about Lanka for a minute. Right now, I'll take you to PowerPoint in a second, but immediately people, if you ask majority of the people in India or outside right now and say, okay, where is Lanka? Where is Lanka in the sense of Ravana's Lanka? And people will point to Sri Lanka. Okay, the name sounds well too. Okay, so we will briefly look at the history of that name. And for all it matters, again, we are going back 14,000 years ago. It's very likely, it's not, it won't be a surprise if what we consider today as Sri Lanka was also very much part of a Ravana's kingdom. I wouldn't be surprised about that, because if you look at Ravana's kingdom, it had come all the way to central India. So for example, when Ram went to Panchavati near Nashik, right, Ram, Lakshman and Sita, and Shrupanakha comes there. Shrupanakha, Ravana's sister, she doesn't come out of a blue. In fact, she's been given responsibility for that region by Ravana to administer. And therefore, Khara, Dushan, Trishira, they are also positioned as the military warriors of Ravana's army in that area. So Ravana had an influence in that area. So not surprised if Sri Lanka, what we consider today Sri Lanka, was part of Ravana's kingdom. But as far as the Ravana's Lanka is concerned, let's see what our evidence shows. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing, and I will start with Valmiki Ramayana, and then we will look at some references from non-Ramayana but other ancient Indian narratives. All right, so yesterday, by the way, Aditya ji, I gave a presentation on the West Coast, through Zoom, so I was right here. And the topic was Sugriva's Atlas. So this is something I'm just quickly sharing with you, that you and me should do at least 4 episodes, or 4 episodes should be sufficient for Sugriva's Atlas, and we will do 1 episode each for each direction. Right. The east direction, south direction, west direction, and north direction. Okay, I had to do it in a bit of a hurry yesterday. It was well received, so that is something for you and me to do. Absolutely. But I will limit myself today to only the Lanka part, Ravana's Lanka. So quickly to give you the background. So Ravana has taken away Sita from Panchavati. Now Ram and Lakshman start searching for Sita. They are going in the southern direction. They meet Shabri at the Matanga ashram. And right in that area, Sugriva is also staying. So then Ram and Lakshman meet with Sugriva and Hanuman. Okay, after that the long story goes, then finally Ram kills Wali, then they wait there for the rainy season, and now Ram is asking Sugriva to get his acts together, Vanaras together, and send them in search of Sita. That's where we come now. What Sugriva does is Sugriva divides his Vanara force, the search of Sita mission, makes 4 groups and sends them in 4 different directions: east, west, north, south. Okay, we will only limit ourselves to the south direction because that's where the Lanka is. Okay, and for each direction he has given the leaders, like especially the south direction, because that's where more than likely Sita was, because Ravana was there. He has got 3 leaders there: Angada, Jambavan, and Hanuman. Okay, so now we start our journey. And I will quickly get to Lanka here, because that's where the direction Lanka is. This is the map of the world. Now the description that Sugriva gives for the south directions are very important, very critical, that we understand in order to understand the location of Ravana's Lanka. So we begin somewhere in the central India, because that's how Sugriva describes it, towards going in the south direction. And where I have highlighted the map, that's the approximate direction we are going to explore. Okay, so today we will not discuss that. When we discuss the south direction as a separate episode, we will do that. But actually, Sugriva describes the south direction, starting with the central India from Narmada River all the way to Antarctica. And this should be fascinating. This should fascinate everyone. because all the way to Antarctica, and this description is going back to 14,000 years, more than 14,000 years. On the other hand, if you look at the so-called modern history, the Antarctica was not found, at least not found by the Western Europeans, until 1773 or 1818, depending on which narration you trust or which narration you believe. Okay, so we are not going to go as far as Antarctica today. Very, very critical, very important, beautiful evidence. But I'll just take you to Lanka and then we will stop. Okay, so we are going in the south direction. Now there are some descriptions in this south direction after Sugriva describes Ravana's Lanka that we don't know today with the today's geography that you are seeing on the screen as to what area he might be describing. I mean, could that be some areas of Africa? Could that be some areas like Madagascar? Could that be some areas of South America? Could that be some areas of Australia? We don't know. We definitely know it's not Antarctica because Antarctica is very well described. Do you know the name of it? How Valmiki Ramayana describes it?
See no, I don't know the name. Yes, please share.
Okay, he describes it as a Yamapuri.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is the Yama. The south direction is the direction of a Yama. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. So I'll say it briefly, and I'll give you back to you, and then we'll talk again.
So in the directions, when you look at Vastu, and there is a Purva Prishta, so which is a Purva is the when you put your nose in the Purva direction, then Prishta, and then Bamiyan, which is Uttar on the left, and Dakshin is the right. So I mean the directions are calculated like that. So if you put the nose in the east where the sun rises, and then that is, and the Prisht is the Paschim, which is the back.
Yes.
And this is how the Vastu Purush is situated in the
correct.
So I think the whole direction coordinate or north-based direction is wrong. So if you so when you calculate with this, then there is a also in the Sagar Maharaj story, if you look at Purana in the Sagar Maharaj story, where the 4 directions are there in which elephants, Virupaksha, I forgot the other 3 elephants' name, but I think that gives the correct coordinates of the directions as well as the land formation. So in that way, I think what you're saying is fitting into that direction also.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And one of my, I mean, I don't know much about the Sthapatya and Vastu Shastra. One of my friend, a wonderful person, very expert, he's from Kerala. His name Abhi Shivdas. He's based in North Carolina. And he actually teaches courses in Vastu Shastra. And what he told me is that, because you always think south has a bad direction or stuff like that. And he says there is no good or bad. It's just the positioning of it and what you want versus, I mean, it's all what you want versus how you want to position, right? Also, just because you mentioned the word, let me mention something else. Like, so Dakshina, okay? Dakshina, see, that's from where the word dexterous comes. Like dexterity is like expertise, like being right, Exactly. So right hand typically, in most cases, unless you are a left-handed, is considered the more effective hand, more effective things we can do, dexterous, Dakshina. And that's how the word dexterous also comes. Anyways, so there are some descriptions, and we will not go that far today, but there are some descriptions that we don't know exactly where to put it. But no confusion when it comes to Antarctica, and definitely no confusion when it comes to Lanka. So let's go there. Quickly, I thought I will mention it. I get some these repetitive questions, where they can buy the books. I have shown the books in one of your show. Quickly, if you are in India, if people are watching or if they watch on the YouTube, if they are in India, the best place to purchase my books, 3 books. When did the Mahabharata war happen? In India, the historic Rama is called 12,209 BC, that middle book. And Bhishma Nirvana, they can be purchased from subbupublications.com. Okay, you can purchase them online. Okay, and they have become very popular there now. What is that? 1 lakh, which is 100,000 copies been sold in print and whatnot.
And I must also add, I fully endorse these books, and Sattology channel would like you to buy these books because a lot of research has been done by Sri Nilesh Okji on these books.
Yeah, thank you. And for Indian, especially the Indian operation, I want to tell people that it is a purely non-profit operation. One day, this individual, Rutvik Subramanya, he just pinged me on a Facebook message. This is a couple of years ago, and said, Nileshji, your books are come out very costly because the other side that you are seeing the books right now on the left side, these are printed through Amazon print on demand, and they are printed in America and they're then shipped. So if somebody orders it from India, it comes out to be costly, like an
Yes.
American, whatever that cost is, $15 or so, and it becomes very costly there. So this Ritvik, he just pinged me on the Facebook, said, this is costly here, can I publish your books in India? And next thing I said, yeah, just go ahead, let me know what you want. And it's a non-profit in the sense that we want to make it sustainable, but he doesn't take any financial benefit out of it. In fact, if anything, he puts his own money. That's what he has done. For me, I don't take even a penny from it. So I want you to understand that. Now, the US operation is directly through Amazon print on demand. So if you are outside India, then your option is Amazon, both paperback and Kindle. Again, a Kindle version is perfectly fine if that's what you prefer to do. I would encourage, because all these books are very meticulous research journals or research books. So it is not easy to read them in a paperback. So I would encourage you to go for a paperback, okay? And my quickly next book that I'm working on is the History of Hindu Civilization. Quickly, that's where you can order, subhupublication.com. If you want to contribute, you can go to Patreon there. WordPress, my blog, very important. If you have a question, and of course, put those questions on a Sattology YouTube channel, and I will try my best to answer the best of my time availability. But also make a point to go to my WordPress blog. There are 500 plus different articles, and more than likely between my 3 books, between my 500 plus blog articles and YouTube videos, you should be able to get answers to 99.99% of the questions you may have. And if you still think there is a question, then you ask the question, okay? So we can make this efficient. So I don't have to answer the same question multiple times. So definitely go to wordpress.com.
So
also, there is you can type with a FAQ, like frequently asked question. And that actually has many frequently asked questions and their answers. And then my Facebook and Twitter handle.
So Nilesh, since
Go
you're
ahead.
showing that, I would like to invite you publicly now to sattology.org, and
Okay.
please, you can republish your old articles there.
Very good.
You can create your own login and publish there all the old articles. We are
Okay.
creating a single place repository so that people can, whosoever is searching for Sattology, not mythology, then they can get it from there. So
excellent. And I will, obviously I will reprint my old articles there, but I will also write new articles there too,
yes.
So, that's excellent. That's great. And thank you. Okay. So now let's get into the south direction. So Sugriva is describing for the Vanara party that's going in the south direction to follow these landmarks. Okay. Now remember the Sugriva, if you can see the mouse cursor, Sugriva is into this region somewhere, So Sugriva is into this region, like what you call the Tungabhadra, the Hampi, the Kishkinda region. Okay. But when he's describing, and he does that for the same region, now for south direction, he starts describing from Narmada. So he's saying, hey, okay, so let's say, where Narmada is, look for in that area, because somebody has to go into that central area too, to search for Sita, in case Ravana is hiding it there. Then go to the area of Krishna Vena, which is sort of the southern Maharashtra region. Then he's talking about the Godavari river. He's talking about Kaveri river. I want to quickly bring you to the last point here. Very important to understand location of Lanka. At the last point, he's saying Tasya Asinam Nagasya. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead. I'm just reading the Sanskrit. Yes.
Okay. Tasya Asinam Nagasya Agre Malayasya Mahojasam Drakshata Aditya Sankasham Agastyam Rushi Sattamam. He says, finally, as you keep on going south after Kaveri, just the previous verse has a Kaveri in it, then you are going to go to the Malaya Parvata, Malaya mountain. Go to the top of the Malaya mountain, and this is very important. Then from there, you will see the bright Agastya Rushi Sattamam. And how bright? He says it's as bright as the sun. Drakshata Aditya Sankasham, as bright as Aditya. Okay, Agastya. Now here, remember, we have a sage Agastya in many places. In fact, one of the Agastya met Rama in Panchoti, before Rama went to Panchoti. Okay, so there are human beings as Agastya sages and many of the descendants of Agastya. But here at the top of the mountain, what Sugriva is describing, and the one that Agastya, which is as bright as the sun, is the Agastya star, the Canopus. And it's very crucial that we all understand this. Why is this important? Because right now in our times, you can see Agastya from wherever you are. I mean, say from Delhi, you can, in India, you can see from Delhi, you can see Agastya from Kurukshetra. But because of the astronomy phenomenon of the precession of equinoxes, you know, it's like a 26,000 year cycle. A time comes when Agastya can only be seen from certain southern latitudes. And the timing of the book I that showed you just now, the 12,209 BCE, or the historic Rama, where I have shown by extracting 600 plus different references from the Valmiki Ramayana itself and solving them as a jigsaw puzzle to show that the timing of Ramayana is 12,209. That BCE, that particular year, is the year of Ram Ravan Yuddha. Why I'm mentioning this? Because 14,000 years ago, in 12,000 BC, the only area of India from which you can see Agastya, the Canopus, is that Malaya or Mahendra Parvata that Aditya ji we just briefly talked before we started, you know. So that's what is very important to know, where it is and why it is important, the reference to Agastya. And where it is saying Tamraparnim Grahajustam Tarishchata Mahanadim. That is the area where Tamraparni river originates, and it beautifully flows eastward. I don't know if you can see that, but just where the arrow ends, if you see, this is the whole Malaya range here, and you see a river here, that is this Tamraparni river, okay? And then it is meeting here. Here is where Rameshwaram is, you know, the current Rameshwaram is here. This is the area of Tamraparni. Now I'm going to take you, so that's the area we are going to explore now. Now I'm going to take you to that southwest corner of India, Kerala, and even the southwest part of Kerala. It is now today in our times is known as the Agastya Malay Biosphere. And this is this Valmiki Ramayana description is a beautiful description or beautiful example of astronomy and geography coming together. The slide that I'm sharing you, Aditya ji, I'm borrowing this from Mrs. Rupa Bhatti ji. You know, she's my co-researcher. She's doing very original research on Agastya. I mean, she has 3 volumes in her mind, Agastya Code, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. That much Agastya is very important for world civilization, not just Indian civilization. But back to our Lanka thing. So now what it is saying, the next verses that Sugriva is saying, he says, Tata Samudram Asadya Sampradharya Artha Nishchayam Agastena Antare Tatra Sagare Viniveshita. So Agastya is putting 1 foot here, you know, and his other foot is there, you know. So he was here, but he's also there. So 1 foot here in the sense that is the last point from which Agastya can be seen. And of course, the other Agastya being actual his location in the southern hemisphere. Something very interesting about Ramayana, Aditya, I should mention. Ramayana has a clear description of the North Pole Star of Ramayana times. And that also immediately takes us to 12,000 BC, okay? It says, Brahma Rashir Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshaya Archishmantah Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. Brahma Rashi, Vega, Abhijit is a pole star, and all the other bright stars, including the Saptarshi, are making rounds around this bright pole star, Brahma Rashir Vishuddhasya. So that's what I described in my 2014 book, the historic Rama. But I had completely missed this Agastya reference, okay, the one that I'm showing you on the screen. And this was picked up by Mrs. Rupa Bhatti ji, okay, my co-researcher. This is afterwards, huh? I mean, she did it, I forgot now exactly, but maybe in the last 4 years or so. And what is so beautiful, it is very clear that when the Brahma Rashi becomes the North Pole Star, okay, it is the exactly same time, and in every cycle of 26,000 years, Canopus, which is Agastya, also becomes a South Pole Star. And that is the description here. That is why Agastya could only be seen from the Mahendra Parvata. So he's saying, Chitra Sanu Naga Sriman Mahendra Parvatottama Jata Rupamaya Sriman Avagado Maharanavam. And he says, this is the place, this Mahendra Parvat is the place for you to make a further uddan, you know, further jump towards Lanka. Very, very important. Okay. So go ahead, Aditya ji, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah. See, just I also wrote there somewhere in the books that the Mahendra Parvat is
Hmm.
the abode of Parshuram also, isn't it?
Yes, true. And Parshurama settled whole Kerala, whole the Konkan area, right? All the way from Kerala to parts of Maharashtra, the whole western strip, western, you can say the tropical strip.
And that's why it's called God's own country. And unfortunately, we are losing it day by day.
Unfortunate, very unfortunate. Yes, they're losing it, and we all have to make efforts in an accelerated fashion
Some
if you want to fix it.
Yeah, let's
Very,
continue
very,
with this. Yes.
very sad. Yeah. So what do you call that? Parshurama Kshetra. They also call Parshurama Kshetra. Where I grew up, the western coast of Maharashtra, we have a Parshuram Mandir there, and now not in my lifetime, but my father's time, where they used to have this what you call the cannon. That they used to fire every day at certain time, like 11 o'clock in the morning, and that used to be heard in the whole area. And whoever is working, wherever they are working, in the field or whatnot, immediately they will stop at that 11 o'clock when they hear the cannon, and they will raise their hand and say Jai Bhargav Ram. So that's what my father has told. By the time when I grew up, that cannon thing had stopped for whatever reason. All right. So yes, but that's very, very, very important, very relevant. Now this is the place to jump. Now I'm going to bring something else. Okay. This is again slide from Mrs. Rupa Bhattiji's presentation. Where she has drawn that horizontal dot line, dotted line, and the red line that she's showing, that red area, and that triangle shows the location of the Mahendra Parvat. That is you have to go to the top of the mountain to see Agastya. It has gone that far south because it has become a pole star to the south. Okay, so that's very important, and that the area where she has shown with the red line is where it could be seen. Okay, and that's what Sugriva is saying. That is the point for you to jump. Now, therefore, it perfectly matches. I mean, that description perfectly matches for 12,000 BC. That's when it has become a pole star. Why it is only could be seen from the southern thing. But now let's quickly get to the connection of Ravana's Lanka. Is Sri Lanka Ravana's Lanka? See, Arab called Sri Lanka, what we call Sri Lanka today, as Serendip, which is actually a Apabhramsha of Simvaladweep. Okay, and we know that there are people who consider themselves, they call themselves Simvalis. We know that they are there into Sri Lanka right now. So Simvaladweep was the name. Arabs called it Serendip. Europeans called it Ceylon. Again, from that Seren becomes Ceylon. The name many of us would have also heard. And many of you may or may not know, but the current name Sri Lanka was established or given to that landmass, what we call Sri Lanka now, in 1972.
And
Okay.
also the language is still Simhala.
Official language is also Simhala, correct. And yeah, and the northern part, of course, the Tamil in the Jaffna area and whatnot, right? Yeah, but otherwise the language is Simhala. Now what I'm showing you.
One thing also common to that land is lions are very common there, lions.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, elephants, right? Elephant, then monkeys also. Yes. Now what you actually is a few days ago, not few days, few weeks ago, I gave a presentation to Sri Lanka Tourism Board, Tourism Government Department on Ravana. I forgot what the subject was. Ravana's Lanka. I forgot the subject. But I talked about Ramayana, or dating of Ramayana to Sri Lankan government, the tourism department. But back to this. So now Sugriva is also playing a statecraft, Adityaji. For example, when he meets Rama initially, he says, when Rama explains that Sita is being abducted by Ravana, he says, okay, I've heard the name, but I don't know where he lives. I don't know how powerful he is. I don't know his exact whereabouts, but I will do my best, because he's also using a statecraft. He needs Rama's help. And he doesn't want to immediately tell Rama the location because Rama might say, thank you very much, and might head towards Lanka. But now here, when he's describing the south direction, yesterday I gave that as a quiz question to them, Here he's describing very beautifully where Lanka is, okay? Now, before I get into this verse, quickly I'll mention that Lanka, you see, the Ravanas and the Rakshasas are called Nairutyas, Nairutyas, which refers to southwest direction. So southwest with respect to India. And that's very important to understand it, by the way, here, okay? So he's saying, it is a Shata Yojana Vistruta. So maybe that is the expansion of the Lanka itself. Maybe it is that broad. or it is that much distance away, whichever way it is. And then it says you definitely should look forward into Lanka. Now, what I'm showing you below are very beautiful pictures of that southern portion of India on the left side, and then whole of India along with the southern portion on the right side. What you notice is if the water is taken away, this is how the landmass will look like. So in terms of the relative height. And now if you bring in the equation of 14,000 years ago and look at the sea levels, which were down more than 120, 130, 140 meters down than what they are today, then what we know is that the landmass of Sri Lanka is directly connected to India, or was connected to India. There was no need for a Nala Setu. Okay, so that's also one very powerful reason why Lanka is not more than likely what we call Sri Lanka. Okay, so that's what this map is showing. But I also want to show you the description where Sugriva is telling which direction they need to go. Nirutta, the southwest from the Mahendra Parvata, which is not going towards Lanka. That's another point I want to make. More going towards Maldives, like Malay. Okay, and is there a landmass right now that we have now? Right now we don't have it. Quickly, I will give you another description, and I'm almost done. But before I give you this, just here, even if you go back 2000 years to Greek records, in their records they describe these areas of the southern India, and what they talk about? They talk about the island of Lanka. They talk about a place called Taproben, and I'll explain what that possibly they're referring to. And they also call the island of Simvala. So they're talking Lanka, Taproben, Simvala, as if these are three different places. So that is another evidence coming from 2000 years ago from Greek records. From Valmiki Ramayana, we have a reason to believe that they have to go in the southwest direction and not southeast direction towards Sri Lanka. Okay. Right now, we don't see a specific landmass. Many geological things would have happened. And now this is my last one, and then we will stop. Here, if you go to ancient narratives outside Valmiki Ramayana, for example, this is from Laghu Bhaskariya. It's a purely astronomy text. And what it describes is the zero longitude, the prime meridian. Okay. Now today we consider it going from London, from Greenwich. But before it was going through Ujjain. Okay. So that verse there, Lanka, Vatsyapura, Vanti, Sthaneshwara, Suralaya, what it is saying is the zero meridian, the prime meridian is going through the Suralaya, Sthaneshwar, which is Kurukshetra, Thanesar, Avanti, Ujjain, Vatsyapura, more than likely Badami in Karnataka. And then it's going straight to Lanka. And the Lanka was very important for astronomy purposes, for making observations and whatnot. And the location of Lanka is a zero longitude and zero latitude. So it's right on the equator. And we know that Sri Lanka is not on the equator. Sri Lanka is north of the equator, but close to it. Okay. And as I said before, the whole Sri Lanka could be very much part of Ravana's empire. Okay. So that is still can be considered Ravana Bhumi or Lanka Bhumi in a broader sense. So that's one reference. I will skip the second reference. Quickly, I'll mention that the zero meridian or the prime meridian that we see in Greenwich, and since all of us are born after 1851, we would imagine it was always there. Well, it wasn't always there. In fact, it was taken from Ujjain. It was also stolen, taken from Ujjain to Greenwich in 1851. Okay, now it's supposedly it goes through that Greenwich Royal Observatory, and this is my last slide.
I'll just add here.
Yeah, please.
Whosoever defines times controls time. And I think this is what exactly happened, because most of the times we have a, and I don't know why we take pride in that. We have never waged a war against anyone. We have never. I asked them why we have not waged a war. We have never attacked, and I think it's become a very common occurrence. But if you see Ramayana, Mahabharata, wherever there is a adharma, there has war waged. So,
or all our Bhagwan and Bhagavatis, they are carrying weapons in their hand. See the what they say, there is a verse, like which is like a kshama, like showing kindness, forgiving someone, or ahimsa. It suits the person who is powerful.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Who is powerful. Otherwise, it's a useless talk, right?
It's a useless conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the premise was, I can have weapons, but you should not have weapons. So automatically now the other person is a slave. Correct. Because they know that if something doesn't work, then danda is going to fall on their head.
Correct. So you can be most powerful, you can have all the weapons, and then you can choose. That is dharma. You can
That is
choose now to be kind.
correct.
Okay, but you cannot say, "Oh, I want to be kind," when you are the weakling.
Yes,
That has no meaning.
that is
You
no
are
meaning.
doing because you have no other option. Yeah,
Like
absolutely
beggars
great
can't
point,
be
Aditya.
choosers. That's
Yeah,
a
great
point.
point. So quickly, what I want to show you, and this is my last slide for the Lanka, is this. Where you see number 3 is the current land boundary of India. Okay, but we are not talking Ramayana happening today. We are going back 14,000 years. There should be. By the way, for the viewers, I will say, if some of those saying, what is this guy talking? 14,000 years. I would ask every one of them to pick up my book, The Historic Rama. If they are outside India, if they are inside India, pick up the book, The 12,209. Of course, the other books too, but definitely for Ramayana, this book, and start reading reference by reference. I have close to 575 references, only astronomy. They all point to 12,209. And then if they go for hydrology, geology, and all of those, they will also take them to this. Now, that's what we are talking here. So 3 is the current boundary. Now, if you go back to 20,000 BC, 17,000 BC, 14,000 BC, and so on, then you are coming to this, like 4. Number 4 was the previous boundary. So there was because the ocean level were down 120, 30, 40, 140 meters down. So this was also a land, and people had access to. And you remember, still they have to build a bridge, Aditya ji. So the Lanka has to be far away. In fact, Sri Lanka was well connected at that time. Okay. And what they have found in the research is, like, this is the Tamraparni river, this is the Vaigai river that goes through Madurai and then comes back very close to Rameshwaram. Their path, their river valleys inside the ocean are tracked, and these are the paths. That's how it is going. And this 8 actually flows all the way closer to the southern part of Lanka. So I am saying, when you go back to 14,000 years ago, there is no need for the Nala Setu to go to Sri Lanka. It is connected. It's a landlocked. It's connected by land. So Lanka is many, just like described in the astronomy text or even the Valmiki Ramayana clues, it is somewhere else. Now, many geological things have taken place. So actually, if we go Shata Yojana, right now, are we looking for any land mass that is above the sea? No, there is no. But if you look at the location where if somebody is a very, what you call, ambitious researcher, for that person or a group of people to search for the Lanka or what happened to that Lanka is somewhere close to Malay, Maldives, and possibly east of Maldives. That's what I would say. That's what I'm saying based on a research of Mrs. Rupa Bhattiji. So this is my last slide, Aditya ji. So I'm going to stop sharing.
So that I'll just rephrase you. So according to you, the Lanka has to be east of Maldives on the zero meridian, as per the
Zero,
Indian Shastra.
correct, and on the equator. So
And on the
zero
equator.
meridian, that line should go through Kurukshetra and Ujjain, and possibly Badami, and then also it should go all the way on the equator or somewhere close to it. It doesn't have to be one point.
So when Hanuman jumped 100 yojana, it has to be from somewhere in Maldives and jumped.
Yes, if you do the distance, actually Rupa Bhattiji has done that distance from Mahendra Parvat that I showed you, Agastya Malay biosphere. From there to east of Malay, like that zero degree longitude, it comes to that 100 yojana. I mean, that whatever yojana equal to 8 miles or just approximately that. It does come to that.
So exactly. And there were some researchers who were trying to put Lanka, which is in Odisha, southern Odisha, on Vishakhapatnam also. They said the Mahendra Parvat, and then they actually calculated that it's actually 800 miles.
Correct. I have seen that research from Andhra Pradesh. I don't know if you know him, that person. I was presenting, he was one of my co-presenter in the same conference session in Jabalpur a few years ago, 2016. And so he had shown from Mahendra Parvat of Odisha all the way to Sri Lanka, right? And that comes to 100 yojanas or whatnot. See, there are many locations. Some people have imagined that in Madhya Pradesh, like around the lake. And you know what is the funny story? They say he has to go to the other side of the lake, but apparently the joke is Rama and Sugriva did not know that they can walk on the side of a lake. They feel like building a bridge. But what do you do? I mean, there are these people, many of them, and I'm not talking of this individual, very, very nice individual that who has put the theory of Odisha, Mahendra Parvat. By the way, Mahendra Parvats are all over.
All over.
There are so many. I mean, like you see descriptions of Bharata coming from Kekaya to Ayodhya, there are few Mahendra Parvat there.
That's right.
Mahendra is the Indra. So any Indra is up in the air. Indra is a representation of east direction, but also the sky.
Yeah.
So anything that goes towards the sky can be called Mahendra.
That's true. That's true. And I think there is a basic fallacy in misinterpreting and also not following the Sanskrit descriptions, because we are not trying to rewrite history. We are trying to understand history. That is a major thing.
Correct.
Difference
and
right
we have
there.
to be open to it, right? Because something has happened so many thousand years ago. We may not always get answers to all the questions, but we should be very honest, truly try to find the truth. Sometimes we may succeed, other times we may not succeed, and that's perfectly okay. Still we have a good reference of Ramayana, Mahabharata and Vedas and whatnot.
No, one thing I really like about Nilesh, your research is that you are trying to do philosophical speculation. You're not trying to do mental speculation.
Correct.
And when there are people who are get into the mental speculation game, that spoils everything. Then you become Devdutt Patnaik, which is a complete, disinformation campaign. Like imagining things like Radha means this, sun means this. We are not into that business. We are into Pulastya Rishi or Agastya Rishi has said this. This is the star position. So this speculation is actually healthy for the spiritual.
Very healthy. Yeah. So, and can we objectively test it? So unless we can objectively test it, even no matter how much convinced I may be in my subjective conviction, I should not start telling people. I mean, I can discuss with you, but explaining that, hey, this is my speculation. So for example, the Lanka, I said, hey, it appears that Lanka is there.
Yeah.
And right now we don't have a landmass to look for other than maybe Maldives, but that's very small and that wouldn't qualify as a Lanka. So possibly it has gone, it has been destroyed, or we don't know what it is and we need to do it. And again, I have not totally given up on the idea that Sri Lanka could be Lanka. We can be very open to these possibilities.
Yes, we're trying to see what is written in the Shastra,
right,
and calculate it and come up with that. If somebody has a difference of opinion, present an alternative viewpoint. We are always open for that.
Absolutely, and that's why we have the whole tradition of a Vada. Krishna says Vada Pravadata Aham. A very intelligent Vada that is created in search of the truth, very rare. I have yet to see one. I have done some Vada with people, but it turns into a Jalpa, Vitanda, Hetva, Bhasa, Chala and Jati and Nigrastan fast. But that is our tradition, and through that, there is that verse you might have heard, Vade Vade Jayate Tattva Bodha. Through the Vada, we get to the truth, the Tattva Bodha.
But he also warns, Ved Vad Ratha Partha. That don't get into that just trying to show off your knowledge and then become a pandit and elitist, and that it doesn't show.
Correct.
The philosophical truth search is very valid, and it must be encouraged.
Right, because the Vada can be understood in a different ways also. One is like just Vitanda Vada also is a Vada, So the Narada Bhakti Sutra said, right? Narada Bhakti Sutra says Vada.
Vitandavad leads to Pakhandavad.
Correct. Very much people become dogmatic. Even if they are wrong, they want to stick to whatever they believe, They want to save their face, all kinds of crazy things come in.
Yeah, ye Shastra Vidhi Mutsrijya Vartate Kamakarata.
Yes.
So there is no success if you leave the Shastra. And then the point that we're presenting is Shastra says this.
Yes.
If you have something to condemn it, it's very welcome. And it should be taken, it is taken in a positive light. But if you try to imagine and start putting assumptions, English word assumption is a very difficult word. It says making an ass of you and me together.
Good one. So assumption has a meaning, but assumption is also useful, but you have to state that it is your assumption.
Correct.
And what happens, what you just said, people imagine something, and then they just after some time, this is a Western Indology. Unfortunately, it has impenetrated our Indian Indologists also. But something they assume, next day they start thinking that is to be the truth. That is the problem of many.
Right. So thank you so much. This was a very entertaining session. I learned a lot. And I love those maps, and thank you for researchers who did that work for you, and really appreciate it. And I look forward to viewers to go on YouTube and watch this video, send your comments, and also buy Nilesh Oak's books on Subu Publications, which is website was earlier given in the video, and I'll repost the video as well. So I
Okay.
will stop here, and thank you, Nilesh ji, and for a wonderful presentation, and in fact, very scientific inputs. And I love the Indian maps without water. We need to get the maps, and somewhere we will also talk about how the maps of the world have to be read upside down, because the entire Western theory is
Yeah.
ulta, is upside down, because they have taken a right hand drive into left hand drive. And I'm just giving a very mundane example, but we have to completely upside down, because the Indologists have done the worst impact on the Vedic thought process. In fact, sometimes you have to stop thinking like a Western and start thinking in Sanskrit to understand what they actually mean. So we'll end there, but we'll talk again, and with a wonderful topic again. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.